Welcome to using Google Forms as a self-grading quiz. That's what today is all about. I've created a Google form and I've given it my demonstration quiz title, and I've put, first of all, a question asking for the student's name. I do this just in case I forget to check the setting to make sure that I'm collecting usernames automatically. Where you do that is up in this settings gear. And you'll notice that when it first pops up, collect email address is not selected. Please make sure that you select that if you want to make sure to collect who completed the assignment. And if it's a test and you want them to only have one opportunity to respond, you can also select limit to one response. I always check this box, and this means response receipts. I always say always. What that does is when the student is done with their quiz, it sends them a copy of their responses via email. What do you want the students to see after the quiz is complete? Do you want them to be able to edit it after they submit? Do you want them to see summary charts and text responses? If you select that option, they will be able to see the summary charts that show what everybody said in class. If you want them to be able to analyze how many people got it right, how many got it wrong, or if it's a matter of just opinions, you can have them look at the graphs themselves without controlling who sees the graph when. So that's an option for you as well. But for today, we're talking about how to make a quiz. I've restricted it to student users. I'm going to collect their email. I'm going to limit it to one response, and I'm going to send their responses to them via email. Those are my general settings. The next thing I'm going to do is tell Google Forms that this is a quiz by simply clicking on this slider bar. Now that it's a quiz, then it asks me, how do I want this quiz to behave? Do I want to release the grade immediately after the kid hits submit? Or if I'm concerned about security, perhaps I select later after manual review. If you select that, you'll be able to release the results after you make sure that everybody's taken the test so that answers won't get out into the building before you're prepared for that. Then, what is it, once you send feedback, what is it you want them to be able to see? Do you want them to be able to see the missed questions? That would be a good thing. Do you want them to see the correct answers? Perhaps you don't because you use correctives on tests in which you have the students explain what the correct answer would be. Do you want them to see point values? Probably. Click Save, and that sets all of our settings that we need to have a quiz that is self-gradable, that's going to give feedback to the kids, and that's going to collect their usernames. And that's the most important thing. I use this question, your name, with a short answer format in order to just make sure that I've collected the student's name. Heaven forbid I don't select that option to collect student usernames automatically, but if I always have your name at the top, I'll always have a backup to that box being checked. Okay, so it's a required question. It's worth 0 points. You'll see this answer key button down here. It's worth 0 points because all I'm doing is collecting their name. I haven't had to change that. That's automatic. But now let's make a question. So we click on our plus sign to add a question. And I have a document open over here, and this is a genetics test. Not even sure where it comes from. And it's got some questions that are in multiple choice format. And you're thinking maybe, am I going to have to retype all this stuff? Am I going to have to go here, copy A, paste it in over here? No, it's easier than that. I'm going to go to this exam, and I'm going to take this question, hit Control C, or right click, copy. And then I'm going to go over to my form and paste it in using Control V as my question starter. Then what I can do is come back here and select these 5 options that are the answer options. And Google Forms knows that when we create quizzes manually in Word, that we set it up with a series of options. And so when I hit paste, All of those go in at the same time. Now, personally, I don't need the letters since these are already in a radial button format. So I'm going to delete those, but I'm not spending my whole time typing in all of these options. Okay. It took me just a few seconds to change it so that I didn't have those letters. And it looks like I want it to. Now you'll notice something here. You want to make the question required, so hit that slider. And then you want it to be worth a point. So click on the answer key button. Tell it how many points it's worth. 1, 2, 5. In this case, we'll select 1. Add answer feedback, and watch what happens here because it's not just one thing. You're going to add answer feedback and you're going to say, okay, for the incorrect feedback, I'm going to include this note. Check your notes regarding mutations. I can also submit correct answers and say, yes, alleles occur during a mutation at the same location of a gene. I think that's right. I'm not a science teacher. I'm reading definitions online. I'll click Save, and then notice that there's feedback for correct answers and feedback for incorrect answers. You can do either, you can do both, you can do neither. It's up to you. But you'll notice that in your editing now, you have the question, how many points it's worth up here, and then feedback. I go to add a new question by clicking the plus sign. And I'm going to go back to my genetics exam and get one more question. So here I am back at the genetics exam. I've already copied the question, and now I'm copying that list again. I copied the whole list. Click in the option 1, hit paste, and they all go in at the same time. Then I go through and I'm going to take out the B, C, D, and E again. And I did that in real time so you can see just how quickly you can remove those letters if that's what you want to do. I'm going to say, yes, I need to select the correct answer. It's worth 1 point. And the answer is, I don't know. Forgive me. I'm going to select this one for now. And I need to tell this one also that that's the correct answer. You'll notice that it shows up in green. Of course, the students don't see that. And then I can also add my answer feedback. I can select an incorrect feedback and feedback for correct answers. Okay. One thing I will point out here as well. So in my feedback, one of the other things I can do to help students is to give them teaching moments through YouTube videos or other documents that you attach through this link. One of the things I can say for my incorrect answer feedback is to make sure you review your notes regarding Mendel's research and view the video linked below. I click on this link. I include the YouTube link, Mendel's Genetics. I click Add and then Save. And when the student, if they get this wrong, they'll be prompted not only to review the notes, but to watch this video. And when they click on that, it'll open directly to the video that I've asked for them to be able to watch. Okay, so that's a pretty neat option. If you already know that you have some resources to reteach, you can link them directly into your quizzes. While yes, that's a bit of work in the beginning to get that started, it will pay off in the end as students take more control of their own remediation. I hope that makes sense. Maybe you don't want to offer all of your questions on the same page. You can make a new section and start a whole nother section of your quiz. So they'll have to continue to the next section in order to proceed. Here we would do the same thing. We would add a question, we would write the question, offer the options, go to the answer key, tell it what the right answer is and how many points it's worth. And then when you are done with your students taking the test, first you would see responses here. Here's an example where we don't have any responses, but you would be able to analyze each question for whether or not the students were mostly successful, mostly not successful, and it gives you a very quick way to reteach concepts. Let me show you an example in another. So here's an example of a poetry unit pre-test that I did with my students, I think last year. And you'll notice a couple things. First of all, this is not one where we have right or wrong answers. It was a pretest, and this was actually developed before Google Forms became self-gradable, which is a relatively new thing. But I could go into my settings and turn it into a quiz. And now that it is, I can go through and edit this and provide an answer key. I can change this to 1 point. I can select the correct answer, and I can go through the rest of the quiz and edit it so that it is now a quiz, even though it wasn't one before. Okay. Now, but what I'm mostly interested in showing you here is the responses page. On the responses page, I can see a summary of all of the responses, and I can go down and look at what the group said about each of these questions. Which of the following is the best definition of personification? 89% of my kids got that right. That's fantastic, right? The second question, which is the best definition of alliteration? Only 44% got it right. So in my pre-testing, I'm able to see what the kids know and what they're not so sure about. Here's the definition of a Elizabethan sonnet. 48%, only half the kids knew what I was describing or could guess. Unrhymed iambic pentameter, like in Shakespeare's plays, is called what? It's actually called blank verse, and only 18% knew that. So we can review this with the students and say, here's what you know and here's what you don't know, and this is why we're going to focus on these concepts. This is also great to give kids at the end of their test, if only to see how they stack up with their classmates and see that maybe they're not alone in not understanding each of these concepts. So if you want to see individual responses, there's a couple ways to do it. Here's a student's response, and you can see what the student said for each question. Then if you want to go to your next student, you click this arrow going this way. The summary responses are great because they really give you a big picture of what's happening in your class. This doesn't tell you individually what each person said, but it gives you a very good picture of what the class thinks. So it gives us some nice feedback in terms of what is it that I need to reteach? What is it I need to focus on moving forward? Once you're done editing your quiz, then I recommend you go back into your settings. And now that you have built it and you know how it is you want your quiz to behave, you can add some other options. Do you want to show a progress bar? If you have multiple sections, it will tell them you're in section 1 of 5 or 1 of 7. And when they move to the next section, it'll tell them they're in section 2 of 7. It'll tell them how much they have left to go. And that's always nice. So they have a view of the end. The next option is to shuffle the question order. Sometimes you don't want it shuffled. Sometimes it's important that it goes in a particular order, and sometimes for security, you'd like it to be shuffled. And if that's the case, it will do it automatically for you. The confirmation message will just say your response has been recorded unless you want to change it to something else. If you wanted to give a more informative message or provide some instructions afterwards, this is a good place to do that. In this case, students are instructed, once you are finished with your test, please return to Google Classroom and record your answer to the reflection question, how'd I do? I click Save, and now I've given my quiz the instructions on how to start the quiz by collecting a username. I've also provided a place for students to record their name as a backup to that. I've asked a series of questions. I've indicated how many points each question is worth. I've provided the correct answer, which is there in green. And I've also provided feedback for correct answers and incorrect answers. And again, that's something that you can choose to do just feedback for incorrect, just feedback for correct, or for both. At the end, I've told it what I want it to do at the end of the presentation, which is to deliver a particular message. And when I'm ready to post that, I can click on the big white send button. Notice here's another place where you can check that box, automatically collect respondents' TCAP student's username. Just in case you missed it before, it'll ask you once again. How do you share it with kids? Grab the link, click on this link button, You can shorten it if you wish, if it's something that you think you might post, but even that's pretty long to post on a board. Hopefully you're using Google Classroom or maybe Moodle. You'll click copy to copy that link. And then when you're ready, you can post that in Google Classroom, Moodle, or whichever class management system you are using. I hope that demonstration answers a lot of your questions about how Google Forms has changed to become a gradable, interactive quiz and not just a survey device. Please let me know if there is something that I missed that you want me to focus on or to give you more in-depth information on any one of the features that you saw today. Thanks for watching. For more information, please make sure you email me and follow my Twitter @David Noller and @TCAPSLoop. Thank you.